Welcome, you curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're embarking on uh, a really fascinating and surprisingly relatable journey. We're looking into what happens when our biggest pet peeves just vanish.
Interesting premise.
Yeah, right. We're exploring excerpts from The Burden of Stupid by Edwin Campbell. And it kicks off with a sentiment that, well, feels pretty familiar. I don't need therapy. I just need everyone to stop being stupid.
Slightly. Well, I think we've all felt that one at some point.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out some key insights. Insights about how we see other people's actions, and the energy we pour into our daily frustrations.
Right. And that big what if? What if the world suddenly just kind of got its act together?
Precisely. We're going to follow the story of Bartholomew Bingley. This is a man who believed, like, with every fiber of his being, that his problems would just evaporate.
If only everyone else would make sense.
Yes, they just make sense. So let's see if his wish actually grants him the peace he's looking for. Okay, so let's unpack this first bit. Imagine waking up, like every single day, feeling like the universe is actively conspiring against common sense.
That was Bartholomew Bingley's reality. The source calls it a relentless assault on his sanity.
Yeah, a relentless assault. And he truly believed his issues weren't, internal. It was everyone else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Picture his morning commute.
Yeah.
There's always someone always trying to board the train before people get off.
Oh, the classic train scenario.
Right. And he'd mutter, it's a two-step process, people. Disembark, then embark. It's not quantum physics. You can just hear the frustration.
Absolutely. And it didn't stop there, did it? What about his job?
No, not at all. At his job, he was a senior archivist. His colleague, Brenda, from accounting.
Ah, Brenda.
Brenda routinely tried to file tax returns under miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous taxes.
I know. He'd exclaim, Brenda, taxes are not miscellaneous. They are, by definition, quite specific.
And her reaction. Yeah.
Blank stare, apparently.
Yikes.
And even evenings, no relief. His upstairs neighbors, the Higgins family, they had a parrot, Percy.
Okay. A parrot.
And Percy was learning, get this, the complete discography of a particularly tuneless experimental jazz band.
Oh, no.
The source calls it a cacophony of sheer sonic stupidity.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? What strikes me about Bartholomew here is just his absolute conviction.
Right.
He tried everything reasoning, polite suggestions.
Flowcharts. Didn't he try flowcharts?
Yeah, even elaborate flowcharts.
Yeah.
Yet nothing worked. He just saw himself as this unfortunate recipient of widespread objective stupidity.
Objective. That's the key word for him.
Yeah.
He wasn't just annoyed. He was convinced his frustration was, like, the only logical response.
Exactly. It's a direct reaction to an objectively flawed world, not an internal thing he needs to manage.
So how often do we do that? I mean, how often do you, listening out there, feel like Bartholomew, convinced that their lack of logic is your main problem?
Well, it's incredibly common. And the source illustrates it so well with him. Because that perspective, it stops us from looking inward. If the problem is out there,
then we don't need to change.
Precisely. We're just waiting for everyone else to catch up to our level of common sense.
Right. And it wasn't like nobody tried to offer a different view. His only friend, Alistair, a retired philosophy professor.
Ah, the voice of reason, perhaps.
Well, he tried. He kept pushing Bartholomew to seek professional guidance. He'd suggest, perhaps the therapy isn't for them, Bartholomew.
And Bartholomew's response?
Oh, he'd just scoff. He'd say something like, what's a therapist going to do? Tell me to process my feelings about people not knowing left from right in a parking lot.
Chuckles. Okay.
I don't need to process it, Alistair. I need them to learn it. That was his whole thing.
So zero interest in introspection there.
None. And it all kind of reached a peak on what the source calls an egregious Tuesday.
Ah, yes. The egregious Tuesday. Sounds ominous.
It does. What happened that day that really pushed him over the edge, and then what happened next?
Well, this Tuesday sounds like Bartholomew's personal breaking point. Like,
right.
Everything went wrong. His toast burnt, even on the light setting. His train was delayed because someone stood over the yellow line.
Oh, the yellow line infraction.
Indeed. Then Brenda's budget didn't add up because she preferred round numbers.
Preferred round numbers.
In accounting.
Apparently. And to top it all off, Percy the Parrot launched into something called free jazz flounder.
Free jazz flounder. Oh, I can just picture Bartholomew's face. Pure agony.
You can imagine. He felt a vein throb, the source says, and just couldn't take any more.
Okay, so he's at his absolute limit.
And then silence.
Yeah.
Sudden, piercing silence. Percy's jazz just stopped.
What? How?
Well, it turns out this global common sense initiative had launched basically a worldwide campaign.
A common sense initiative, seriously.
Yeah. Encouraging mindfulness, patience, and adherence to basic instructions. And get this, it was spearheaded by a behavioral psychologist. Okay.
Who coincidentally had studied under Alistair, Bartholomew's friend.
Wow, small world. So, did it work? Did people actually start using common sense? Well, the changes were apparently palpable, almost overnight. Percy the parrot.
What about Percy? Still on the jazz?
Nope. Mimicking the gentle cooing of a nearby pigeon, and the source notes, he was quite good at it.
Laughs. From free jazz to pigeon coos. That's progress.
Right. Traffic flowed smoothly, drivers used indicators, his toast browned perfectly.
Amazing.
And Brenda, from accounting, she even started using a calculator.
Okay, that's a miracle.
A small miracle, maybe, but huge for Bartholomew's daily peace. But this big shift, it forces him, and us really, to confront a new reality.
Exactly. The world, as the source puts it, slowly but surely was becoming less idiotic.
And he was bewildered by this.
Utterly bewildered. What happens when the thing you blame for all your frustration just disappears?
Right. The source of his daily indignation, gone. So how did he react? What happened when his big problem was finally solved?
Well, he felt odd. Yeah, just odd. The daily source of indignation was dwindling. His sighs, the ones heavy with the weight of humanity's foolishness, they became less frequent, less profound.
So less sighing. What else?
He suddenly had all this abundance of unused mental energy.
Unused mental energy, because he wasn't busy raging at the world anymore. What did he, do with it?
It's actually kind of funny. He found himself doing things like finishing a Yeti scarf he'd been knitting.
A Yeti scarf.
And adding 2 more stanzas to his poem about lawn bowling.
Lawn bowling poetry, nice.
And even polishing his other shoe, things he just didn't have the headspace for before.
So productive, but maybe aimless.
Kind of, because when Alistair came over for tea, Bartholomew confessed something really key. He said, "It's quieter, Alistair. Efficient. Almost. Boring."
Boring. He found peace boring.
"Apparently," he continued, "I find myself with a surplus of suppressed frustration and nowhere to direct it." And he sighed again, but this time.
Not a sigh of frustration?
No. The source calls it a sigh of existential boredom.
Wow. Existential boredom because people stop being stupid. So he's got this quiet void now. And his friend Alistair, the philosophy professor, he must have had something insightful to say about this.
Oh, absolutely. Alistair's observation, right here in the source, is really the core realization for Bartholomew. It's the crux of it all, he says. Perhaps the problem wasn't everyone else's stupidity after all. Perhaps the problem was your reliance on it.
His reliance on it.
Yeah. Alistair asks, "It gave you purpose, didn't it? A righteous indignation that fueled your very existence."
Oof. That's quite a thought. He's basically saying Bartholomew needed other people's stupidity to define himself, to feel something.
Precisely. That's the profound truth that gets revealed. Bartholomew actually missed it. He missed the thrill of correctly predicting someone's illogical maneuver or the satisfaction of mentally correcting Brenda's arithmetic.
So his external problem, the thing he complained about constantly,
It had become an internal purpose, a way to structure his days, maybe even feel a bit superior and define his identity.
and Bartholomew gets this. Does he have that aha moment?
He does. The source says he mused to Alistair, "You're saying I might actually need therapy now."
Full circle.
Right. The burden of everyone else's supposed stupidity was lifted.
Only to reveal what the source calls the deeper, more complex burden of self-discovery. Wow. What an exploration. From this relentless assault of perceived stupidity to a world of, logical peace. And then finding this unsettling void that the piece created, it really makes you reconsider your own daily irritations, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This whole analysis, it really underscores that our frustrations,
Yeah.
whether it's train etiquette or accounting errors or whatever, sometimes they serve a hidden purpose in our lives, even if that purpose is just giving us something to rail against or, like you said, shaping our days somehow.
Yeah. So for you, our curious listener, here's something to think about. If your personal Bartholomew moments, those things that drive you nuts, if they suddenly vanish tomorrow, what kind of unexpected space might that create in your life? What hidden need might those everyday irritations actually be fulfilling?
That's the real question, isn't it? Perhaps the challenge isn't always about changing the world around us to eliminate frustration, but maybe it's more about understanding what truly fuels us, even when that fuel feels like, indignation.
Something to definitely mull over.
Indeed. Until our next deep dive.